Two people were hired at the same accounting firm on the same Monday in the spring of 2003. Same starting salary, $58,000 a year. Same desk row, same health plan, same retirement plan, same everything. One of them was named Rachel. 22 years later, Rachel has just over $1.6 million. The woman who sat 4 feet away from her earned nearly the identical paycheck for 2 decades and was promoted at roughly the same pace, has about $210,000. Neither of them got a windfall. Neither inherited money, married rich, or picked some magic stock. For most of those 22 years, their salaries were within a few $1,000s of each other. Same income, same city, same era. A gap of nearly $1.5 million. When her colleague finally asked her how, expecting to hear about a risky investment or a secret side hustle, Rachel's answer was almost disappointing. She said she hadn't done anything unusual. She'd used a handful of rules that were already sitting inside the system. Legal, ordinary rules that nobody had ever taught either of them, but that only one of them had gone looking for. That's the part that should bother you. Not that Rachel was brilliant, she wasn't. The mechanisms she used are available to almost everyone watching this video right now. They aren't hidden because they're complicated. They're hidden because the two institutions that should have taught them, your school and the places that hold your money, had no reason to. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 of them. Not vague advice like save more or invest early. 7 specific mechanisms, each one a lever that quietly pushed Rachel's number away from her colleagues, year after year, while they earned the exact same wage. By the end, you'll understand why the phrase, work hard and save, is technically true, and yet almost perfectly designed to keep you average. Let me start with why the thing you were taught was never going to be enough. School, assuming you got any money education at all, teaches one simple story. Earn a paycheck. Spend less than you make. Put the difference somewhere safe. Be patient. Eventually, you'll be comfortable. Nothing in that story is false. Every piece of it is good advice, but it's the financial equivalent of teaching someone to drive by explaining only the brake. It tells you how to not lose money while saying almost nothing about the mechanisms that actually multiply it. And that gap isn't an accident of a crowded curriculum. Banks want your deposits. Employers want you focused on the job, not studying the fine print of the benefits they offer. Nobody in that chain profits from an 18-year-old who understands precisely how tax, compounding, and leverage really work. An informed customer is a less profitable customer. So the knowledge doesn't get taught. It gets discovered, usually late, usually by accident, usually by people who already had money and time to go looking. The gap between the people who find these 7 levers and the people who don't is not a gap in intelligence or income. It's a gap in access to a few pages of instructions that were never handed out. Here are the pages. Call it the second curriculum. The first loophole is the simplest, and it costs the average person the most. The 100-cent dollar. Most employer retirement plans come with a match. You contribute, and your employer contributes alongside you, often dollar for dollar. Read that slowly. A dollar for dollar match is an instant, guaranteed 100% return on your money before it's invested in anything. There is no legal investment on earth that reliably doubles your money the moment you make it. This one does, and it's usually sitting unused in an onboarding packet. Rachel captured the full match from her first paycheck. Her colleague contributed a little, but left part of the free money on the table for 11 years, telling herself she'd fix it once things settled down. That untaken match, plus what it would have grown into, is a 6-figure slice of the gap by itself. One of them collected the 100-cent dollar. One of them handed it back. The second loophole isn't about money at all. It's about time. Call it the decade tax. Everyone has heard compounding is powerful. Almost nobody is taught that it runs on time, not on amount. Picture 2 people. One invests a modest amount from age 25 to 35, then stops forever. The other invests the same annual amount from 35 to 65, 3 times as many years, 3 times as much money in. In most reasonable scenarios, the first person still ends up with more. The one who started 10 years earlier and quit beats the one who started later and never stopped. That's the decade tax. Every year you wait isn't a year of lost savings, it's a year of lost doublings. And the last doublings are the biggest ones. Now you may be thinking, this only helps people who had spare money young or a fancy job with a good plan? Hold that thought. It's the objection the whole system is counting on you to have. I'll answer it in a moment. The third loophole is the tax-free bucket. In most developed countries, there's a category of account where money grows and can be withdrawn without ever being taxed on its growth. In the US, it takes one shape. Across the UK and Europe, another. The label changes, the mechanism doesn't. You put in money you've already paid tax on, and from that point forward, every dollar of growth is yours. Not taxed later, not taxed at withdrawal. Same funds, same contributions, same returns. In an ordinary taxable account, you lose a bite every time gains are realized, and those missing bites never get to compound. The investment is identical. The envelope it lives in decides how much of your own growth you keep. Rachel filled her bucket every year. Her colleague paid a toll on her own progress she never saw leave. Here's the objection I promised to answer, because your brain is already generating it. Isn't this just for rich people? It's the exact opposite. A wealthy person doesn't need a match or an early start. They can brute force comfort with sheer income. These tools matter most to the person on an ordinary salary, because for that person, a 100-cent dollar and an untaxed decade of growth is the entire difference between Rachel's number and her colleagues. The rich aren't who these were designed for. They're just the ones who were taught them. The fourth loophole is asset location, and almost nobody knows it exists because it sounds like a phrase they already know. You've heard of asset allocation, the mix of what you own. Asset location is which account each investment lives in. Different investments are taxed differently. Different accounts shelter differently. And if you match them up right, you pay dramatically less to own the exact same portfolio. The investments that generate the most taxable friction belong inside your sheltered accounts, where that friction disappears. The naturally tax-efficient ones belong in ordinary accounts. Most people own the right things in the wrong places and pay for it silently every year. Fixing it improves your outcome without a cent of added risk or a single extra dollar invested. You just stop leaking. The fifth loophole is the one-day tax. How long you hold an investment before selling changes the rate you pay on the profit, often massively. Sell too soon, and the gain is taxed like your salary at the high rate. Hold past a certain line, frequently around a year, and the same gain is taxed far lower. Same investment, same profit. The only variable is the calendar. People give away enormous amounts by selling weeks before a line they never knew existed. The lesson isn't never sell. It's that the holding period is a lever, and once you can see it, you stop tripping over it. Rachel almost never sold into the high-rate zone by accident. Her colleague did it repeatedly, unaware each time that there'd been a choice. The sixth loophole turns your losses into an asset. It's called harvesting. Every investor has losers. Most people treat a losing position as pure damage, but a realized loss is a usable thing. You can deliberately sell what's down, lock in the loss on paper, and use it to cancel out taxes owed on your winners, often carrying the benefit forward for years. Done carefully, you reinvest in something similar and stay in the market while banking the tax break. A down year, handled right, plants a seed that shrinks your tax bill long after the market recovers. The informed see a drop and reach for a tool. Everyone else sees the same drop and only feels fear. Which brings us to the seventh, the one schools refuse to teach hardest of all, because it's the one the wealthiest quietly build their lives around. 3 words: buy, borrow, die. When you sell an asset that's grown, you trigger tax on the gain. But when you borrow against it, using it as collateral, you get cash in hand and you've sold nothing. So there's no gain to tax. The asset stays invested and keeps growing. And in many countries, when the owner dies, the tax basis resets for their heirs, meaning the gain that was never taxed in life may never be taxed at all. That's why certain very wealthy people appear to live on almost no income. They're borrowing against a mountain of appreciating assets instead of selling. The full version is genuinely an advanced, wealth scale strategy. I'm not telling you to go leverage your life. The point is what it reveals. The system charges the highest rates on the thing most people have, a wage, and the gentlest on the things most people were never taught to accumulate. Not a conspiracy, just a structure built by people with assets that rewards assets. Now, the mistakes that quietly cancel these levers out. The first is waiting for permission. Every one of these rewards the person who starts now over the one who starts informed later. The second is chasing complexity while ignoring the guaranteed wins. People study exotic investments while leaving a full employer match untouched. Collect the certain money before the clever money. The third is letting fear of doing it wrong stop you from doing it at all. Rachel's colleague wasn't reckless. She was cautious, and her caution cost her more than any bad investment could have. The fourth is treating this as one and done. These are habits, not an afternoon of paperwork. The gap between the two women wasn't one big moment. It was 22 years of tiny, correct decisions against 22 years of tiny, uninformed ones. So here's how to use this, depending on where you're standing. In your 20s or early 30s, you hold the one asset you can't buy back: time. Capture every dollar of any match, fill a tax-free bucket, and start the clock. The decade tax is the only one of these that gets permanently more expensive every year you delay. In your 30s or 40s, the tax mechanics start to matter as much as the saving. Get your asset location right, mind the holding period line, harvest losses in down years. You make up for lost compounding by keeping far more of what you earn. Further along, the game shifts to protection and efficiency. Controlling when gains are taxed, how assets pass on, making sure what you've built isn't eroded by mistakes the second curriculum would have caught. It's rarely too late to stop leaking. It's only too late to get back the years you didn't know. There's a deeper truth under all seven, and it's the real reason none of them made it onto a whiteboard. The financial world was not built to be understood by you. It was built to function around you. The tax code, the account structures, the fine print in your benefits were designed to serve the institutions that wrote them, then handed to you with no instructions. Because your confusion isn't their problem, and often it's their margin. School had 12 years to teach you how a match works and why the wealthy borrow instead of sell. So here's what I'd ask. The school system had years to teach you this and didn't. One video won't fix 12 years of silence, but this is the class you were never put in, and there's a page like this waiting every single week. Stay in the room. Follow along, and I'll keep handing you the parts of the second curriculum nobody was ever going to give you for free.